Hi, it's Aganaze Jones again. Well, today I am celebrating the fact that my father, Joseph P. Jones, survived the German torpedo hit to the USAT Dorchester during World War II. February 3rd, 1943, my father recounts, and I also have historical recounts in the form of a wonderful book by Kurtzman, a journalist. Anyway, so what happened? My father said that around midnight, everyone was rounded up in this ship, this armed transport, to just let off steam a little bit, and they went down to the cafeteria or wherever and played games and had some snacks and then returned to their bunks. Now let me explain something about the bunks. This was a luxury liner that was converted into an armed transport port during the war. So they had 4 people to a room, and it was very, very hot. So unfortunately, many of these men took off their life jackets, which they should never have done, and they were not supposed to do. So my father told me that he was just about, or he had just fallen asleep or about ready to fall asleep when, BAM! He said the ship rocked violently, and he said that he woke up, and in his words, quote, pandemonium broke out, close quote. The lights went out. People were bumping into each other, trying to get to the deck. They knew they had been hit by a torpedo, and it was taking on water at a very, very rapid rate. They knew that if they wanted to save their lives, they were going to need to get the lifeboats free. But unfortunately, the lifeboats were frozen to the deck, and they could not get them free. They were only able to get 2 lifeboats free. So this was a rapidly sinking ship, and my father was a lifeguard on Lake Erie. So my father saw that the ship could pull everyone down, so he dove off the ship, not knowing whether he was going to hit anyone or anything. In the process, he did swim away underwater from the ship, and he said he felt his heart pounding because of the pressure of the salt water. When he finally came to surface, he looked around to see if there were any lifeboats close, but unfortunately only 2 of them were available, and yes, they were all occupied. He did see lights bobbing up and down, which were the life jackets. He had given up his life jacket because he was a lifeguard. Also, there were 4 chaplains. By the way, it's known as Four Chaplains Night, February 3rd, because there was a Jewish rabbi, a Catholic priest, a Dutch Reformed minister, and a Methodist minister, or Presbyterian, okay. And they gave up their life jackets, and they hooked arms and prayed and sang as the ship, on the deck of the ship, as the ship was actually going down, just to keep the men encouraged. It was a phenomenal story of unity and courage. So my father realized he was reasonably safe, but he knew that he had to tread water, and all he had was his uniform on, but he couldn't be weighed down. So he went over to a lifeboat and just put his arm over it, because of course, if it capsized, then more lives would be lost. So for 8 hours, my father was treading water alternately, and then putting his arm over the lifeboat to rest, and then socking his face to stay awake. Because as he looked around, he saw people close their eyes and then disappear underwater. So he did that for 8 hours. Finally, rescue boats did show up, and my father was told that he later that he was the last enlisted man they found alive. He let's see, when the boat came to rescue him, the Coast Guard cutter, he was too weak to hold on to a life preserver. So they've had to send down roping to put around his feet so that they could hoist him up by the feet. And he fainted, of course. But when they got him up on top of the boat, the cutter, after he came to, he was told to follow the captain. My dad started to cry and said, "I can't." And they realized his legs were frozen. So they took him down to medical immediately. My father said his next recollection was that he woke up with ice packs surrounding his legs. Fortunately, he got most of his circulation back, and he did end up on Greenland, which was a secret radar installation site agreed to with Denmark for us, the United States, to use for that purpose. So I do have a couple of pictures of him there. He said he enjoyed the pristine beauty of the fjords, but yes, it was pretty stark there. But I feel it's important for me to carry on his legacy. Luckily, there was a foundation on the Queen Mary called the Immortal Chaplains Foundation, run by, David Fox, who was the nephew of Matthew Fox, one of the chaplains. And but unfortunately, David has passed away, and no one has carried on that organization, which is unfortunate because that organization gave out an award every year to a person who crossed over enemy lines to reach out to a person on the other side and made some progress in unity. But unfortunately, that doesn't exist anymore. There is one more organization in Philadelphia called the Four Chaplains Foundation. But I encourage everyone to look up the story and to read it, because it is such an inspiration. I shared it for years when I substitute taught children, the older children. Or even the younger ones, that they, even if I couldn't keep them as well controlled as I wanted during the day, when I told that story at the end of the day, you could hear a pin drop and they were still. And even when I would go back to their room and they would want me to tell it again, or they would want to participate in telling it. So please just spread the word. It's a beautiful story. I'm grateful that my father survived so he could be my dad and my sister's dad and my mom's husband. And again, and here's what David Fox did. The founder of the Immortal Chaplains. He went over to Germany, and he found survivors of the U-boat that shot, the torpedo, and he brought them over here to America to meet with the remaining survivors of the USAT Dorchester and reconcile. And because they said we were only following Hitler's orders, and it was our job, but we didn't want to kill anybody. We didn't want to hurt anybody. We just had to do what we had to do. So there was a reconciliation. Also, there is a beautiful stained glass window in the Pentagon of the Four Chaplains. There is also an amazing etching in a mausoleum stone in Avon, Ohio. Gosh, what's the name of that? Cemetery. It begins with an R, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. That is absolutely beautiful as well. if you can see it. I have seen that, unfortunately not the stained glass, but just whatever you can do, it's quite inspiring. And it's a legacy for our country and our world. So anyway, if I can think of anything else, I will continue. But at this point, I thank you for listening, and thank you for honoring my father and those. Oh, by the way, I did speak with a couple of people, survivors. David Fox put me in touch with, and they said they couldn't talk about it for years. It was so traumatizing, but they did talk to me, and I was very grateful. So, with that, I sign off. Aganaze Jones, with great gratitude. Blessings, and stay safe and blessed. Bye for now.